Hey, welcome back to the Lockdown Sessions presented by Wrestling Travel. Today we are very honored to have with us TW3. TW3, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
I wasn't sure if once we're formally introduced to each other, if I call you T or 3. TW, but we'll just go with TW3. So I had a little thing there. TW3, thank you for joining us. As you know, the Lockdown Sessions, we're just getting a chance to get to know wrestlers and kind of what's been happening with them during the global pandemic. Can you tell all the fans out there where you're calling us from and where you're wrestling?
I am in Appleton, Wisconsin, a little 20 minutes south of Green Bay. Not very far at all. And I am currently at home because, lockdown. So based out of Green Bay, Wisconsin is where I started wrestling. So, yeah.
Awesome. How long have you been wrestling?
14 years this year.
14 years.
There was some time in between, before being fully trained. I'll just go out and fucking say it. I was a yarder. Okay. And I was pretty much discovered by some guys who were yarders before and got trained, and basically came one day and told me, said, hey, Dylan said you need to come and get trained because you're too good for this. And that's what I did. Dylan, if everybody doesn't know, that's Swoggle. He's one of the guys who trained me. So also a product of the Dojo of Pain from Shane Hills and Jay Cash, who you had on the show already. So, yeah.
Outstanding. Yeah, there's nothing a lot of times people don't know. They want to get into the business. It's much easier now than it was for you at the time and for me at my time. But sometimes if you don't know, you don't know where to go for training.
I honestly didn't even know anything about independent wrestling. I knew WWF, ECW, WCW. So when I started yarding, so to speak, I was still living in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I hadn't even graduated high school yet. And then I graduated and I moved to Fond du Lac to go to college. And when I did that, I met some of those guys who I started yarding with up in this area. But still never knew anything about independent wrestling. I was still stuck on my, WWF, WWE stuff. And didn't even know the world of independent wrestling existed until I went to a show. Where I was still yarding, and I went to, it was actually Swoggle's last show as an independent wrestler. And I was like, this exists? Like, these guys are doing what we do and getting paid for it, but in front of a lot more people. Like, I've been doing this to myself this entire time, and I didn't know I could actually be trained to be a wrestler. Because I'll tell you this, I grew up always telling people I was going to be a professional wrestler, and they laughed at me. Because I was very small. I'm still a smaller stature, but I was actually smaller. I was like 5'5" growing up. I sprouted at the end of high school and stuff, and I was always like 80 pounds and 100 pounds, and I wrestled like actual high school type wrestling stuff. And I always said, I'm going to be a wrestler, and they're like, you're too small. You're not like 6'6", 280 pounds. It'll never happen. And I always said, if I figured out how to do it, I'd do it. So here we are 14 years later.
The rest is history. Yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on, and I've touched on with a couple people, and I might have even touched on it with Jay Cash. When I try to promote and get people to go to an independent show, your average wrestling fan or average guy on the street's like, you know what? I want to go watch WWE, WCW, whatever it is. But I know there's some guys doing some amateur pro wrestling, and independent wrestling is anything but amateur pro wrestling. I'm like, if you want to go to WWE and watch it, yeah, I do too. It's awesome. But there is nothing like watching an independent show.
Oh, yeah.
Would you agree? Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I still get that to this day. People who've known me all this time that I've been doing this are like, how's your amateur pro wrestling going? And I just look at them like, we're professional wrestlers, bro. I paid the money. I did the time. I learned my craft. It's not amateur. It's anything but. And I was like, if you guys would actually come out to a show every now and then, you'd see that. And from that, I've gotten a lot more people to come and check them out after years of saying, yeah, I'm going to come. And then they come and they're like, dude, you're really pro. I'm like, I've been telling you that for years, man. You just got to get off your butt and come check one out. So, yeah.
Right now, that's the thing. I think today they're looking for talent, and a guy can be like a bodybuilder, and they'll tap him on the back and come to NXT, come to our training. But back in the day, I remember telling people, what's the difference between you and the people on TV? And it used to be those guys have wrestled 1,000 more matches than we have in a high school, and this and that. It's getting that. You're always learning is another thing to say about it. It's just that you're always learning, and even though you're trained 14 years ago, I know that when you're at a show, you're learning from everybody. You probably still learn from Shane Hills and Jake Cash to this day. And that's what I like. I always like, guys, go to independent wrestling, support the indie wrestling. Not only are you real close to the action, if I boo you, TW3, you're going to hear me and maybe interact. But if I want to buy a beer and a hot dog at an indie show, it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg. You know, I'm going to be able to bring the family out. And that's the thing. Most of the shows are family friendly.
Yeah, they are.
People at the shows. So when you were younger and yarding, it sounds like a gardening job when you say it like that. I had to laugh when I was yarding. Who were some of the first wrestlers to catch your eye on TV?
So first match I ever seen was Sting and Ric Flair. And my uncle introduced me to that. And then from there, it was always like, I like guys with the mystique. So then Undertaker caught my eye, and I was a huge Undertaker fan, still am to this day. While other kids were probably like running away from the TV when he was like the heel Undertaker, the dead man, I was running closer to the TV like, ooh, show me more of this guy. He's cool. And then, of course, you know, the Rey Mysterios, the Juventud Guerreros, those guys like that, because I loved what they could do. I was always like, man, I wish I could learn that. And obviously, I learned, you know, a little bit. Obviously not learning the correct way at that time, but I would imitate those guys. And even Undertaker, I would tombstone guys and chokeslam guys at my little height. And, you know what I mean? Those are the people that, like, really influenced me, so.
What would you say your style is like now if you had to compare it to somebody?
I'd say I'm a hybrid. I can do just about anything. I can strike with the best strikers, can fly with the highest flyers. Definitely have been trying to do a little bit more on the submission side with certain things, just because I want to learn everything. You know what I mean? I can brawl with guys too. Been in plenty of those. So, I mean, I would say I'm a hybrid. Can do just about anything now. I mean, you learn from those guys that you're in the ring with. So, you know, the years of being with the guys like the Silas Youngs when I traveled with them, or the Matt Winchesters when I traveled with them, with the Cashes and the Hills, you know, the Avalons that are out there right now. You learn. And even traveling with Angel Armani, and a lot of people don't know this, but Angel Armani, he's probably one of the best trainers in Wisconsin, to be honest with you. He has put so many people through to other places. And even, like, I was already trained, but I went down to his camp, and I got a lot of my finishing from him, the better selling and things like that. Like you said, you're always learning, and that's constantly what I'm doing. If I'm at a show and I'm not in that match at that time, I definitely go and check out, you know, somebody who's been around a lot longer than me. I want to see what they're doing, you know, and I always pick people's brains, and I'm probably the first guy to always say, hey, did you see my match? Could you tell me what I could do better? Even at 14 years in, I still want to be better. I don't believe that I'm completely out of the whole marketing scene for WWE. I mean, disclaimer, I'm 37 years old, but I don't look it. A lot of people don't know how old I am. And WWE markets on, can they market you for so long? I've been told that because I've been to the tryouts and I've done the backstage work and stuff like that. And so I still want to continue to get better. So I'm always learning. You're always learning in this business, no matter what you're doing. So, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned his name, Angel Armani. When one of the guys early on that came in to a workout that I was at, and everybody was scared shitless to get in the ring with him. And he was just there to help. And I'm like, I'll jump in. I'll learn. And I learn more from him. You know, you learn more from a guy that's been doing it for so long in 10 minutes. And shout out, in October, I brought Robbie J, the Renegade, and his tag
Okay.
team partner um, up to Tiny Love's show in, I'm not sure if it's Waukesha, West Bend.
West Bend, yeah.
So we were there on the show, and I got a chance to see Angel Armani for the first time in probably 15 plus years. He didn't remember helping me out, but he knew he did. Always a great sense of humor. And I
Oh yeah.
introduced him to those two guys, young. I mean, they're young. They're
Mm.
out of the Black and Brave. One is out of Black and Brave with Seth Rollins, and the other one came out of Harley Race's camp. They just started tagging.
Okay.
Angel invited them the next day to come
Mm-hmm.
up and work out with him. They were heading back to Illinois, and they couldn't do it. Angel Armani takes those two boys behind the food truck and spends about maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes working with those young kids. And I can't say enough. I'd love to get Angel Armani on a show like this, but I just don't know if he'd do it. But,
He would do it.
Yeah.
Armani's the type of guy that if he can help you learn, he'll help you learn. And if it's him coming on here, talking about his experience, he would do it.
Yeah.
So
I'll have
I'd
to reach
definitely
out
say,
to him.
yeah, reach out to him.
I just don't know it's not a knock on all, but it's taken people to help me up to do this type of technology. But anyway, back to you. So now 14 years, I was going to say, man, when did you start? When you were like 5, dude? So yeah, you definitely don't look the age. So, and I know I've seen you on a couple shows in the past, and you definitely move around. Wrestling Travel is a company that brings fans from all over the world to wrestling events all over the world. Your WrestleManias. Obviously, the last one got canceled for the fans, but our last trip was to Wrestle Kingdom in Japan. Now, in your 14-year career, you may not have traveled the world like a lot of the bigger stars, but where are some of the cool cities that you've been able to wrestle in?
I've wrestled in Florida. I've wrestled the Ohio, Indiana. I've not gotten to the East Coast. That's where I'm trying to go. Canada, 2 tours there, which was probably the funnest time I've had in wrestling. Just getting in a car and driving literally like it was territories from city to city and all the way up to Alberta and all the way back down to Winnipeg. We did like 13, 14 days of that both times. So those are probably the funnest places. I've wrestled in, I counted the other day because I was talking to somebody. And I'm like, I don't really know, but I wrestled in like 13, 14 states. So.
Fantastic. Did you do Canada? Was that with Danny Duggan?
It was. Yep, with CWE. Awesome. Yep.
Good dude.
Always a great time with Danny.
Good dude. And then East Coast, we did I spent a lot of time on the East Coast. We did the Mania virtual pub crawl where we raised money for the Red Cross, and one of the biggest helping hands that we had was a promotion out in Hazleton called PPW, Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling. So you got to check them out because they're a great organization, and maybe we can get you out on the East Coast.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So what have you been doing pro wrestling wise? Every time I ask this question, people might start going into their shoot job and be like, oh no, I still do this. But strictly on the pro wrestling side, what have you been doing during this lockdown to keep yourself in the zone? I know you're fresh out of a promo tournament.
Yep, I did the promo tournament in which the entire time I was doing that and the entire time this lockdown's been going on, I actually have redeveloped my character. I have a new little side of TW3 that people will start seeing soon. I've been working on the promos. I'm going to start dropping them on my page really soon here. It's just a fresher base of TW3, something that people haven't seen before, more of a gimmicky side. I think people will enjoy. I've been working out in my house as best as I can. Other than that, just waiting for this stuff to get over and get back in the ring, to be honest with you. I did a bunch of different, what we called were live-ins. So ACW did some things where we showed some former, like, previous shows, and we did like live commentary over them and things like that. So I've been fortunate enough to do that as well as the promo battle. But really, honestly, I've been developing this new character. I wanted 2020 to be different, and since there's really been no 2020 for me yet, I think this will be the perfect time to do it, and it's going to be something that people will enjoy, I believe. So, yeah.
That's really important, I think, the promo battles. I did see a little bit of it was a couple weeks ago, I saw the ACW doing that, and I thought that's a really cool thing to keep the fans engaged. The promo tournament was very interesting to me, and I don't want to cause anybody to get any heat, but there was some heat on the side with that promo tournament that I didn't quite understand. And I know Tiny Love is doing another promo tournament, but man, I don't know. It was crazy. It was something that I was not expecting.
It kind of varies, the type of things that happen in things like this. Like, this was supposed to be fun for us, and it was for a while. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was on a communication with like Zach Hendricks all the time, giving him advice. We were talking back and forth before we even got to the finals together. But like, there's always been this fine line, and I'll go ahead and say it. I don't really care about heat anymore because I feel like it's just the stupidest thing in the world. But there's always been this fine line between the Green Bay guys and the Milwaukee guys. There's always been that line. And some people just express themselves a lot more than others. I've been on the other side of that Milwaukee Heat before for something I still think to this day was foolish. And that was me standing up for myself in the locker room and respectfully doing it. It wasn't like I went and yelled at anybody. I was asked a question, and I answered it respectfully and caught heat for years with the Milwaukee scene. So it is what it is. It comes and it goes. When you're a Green Bay guy, you know that every now and then that Milwaukee stuff is coming for the entire part of that section. I'm not, without saying names, just certain people just don't let things go. That's all. They just don't let things go. And a lot of that stuff came from, too, like a lot of these people who were watching these promos were just voting for their family members, their friends, you know. They said what they had to say to try and get in people's heads. And that's why I even let out that little message at the end, like, I get what you guys were doing, but it doesn't hurt my feelings. It actually just it makes me stronger, but it also lets me know I did my job right. If I talked about your friend or your family member a certain way and you got mad at me for it, well, guess what? Now you want to come buy a ticket to the show, don't you? Because you want to see him kick my ass. And that's exactly what it was about. You know what I mean? So a lot of that heat was just like stuff you just brush off your shoulder because you're used to it. And then the other stuff was just like, well, these are people voting for their favorite people. They're going to say what they're going to say. Me being me, whenever people say something negative about me, it's usually me going, ha, 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 in the comment. Sometimes I don't even comment. But sometimes I feel like it's warranted for me to go ahead and give you that ha, ha, ha. I've always been this fun-loving guy. That's really who I am. I can be an asshole, but it takes a while to get me there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that heat shit was just, it was what it was. And I get that people have their opinions. That's the thing. People are allowed to have their opinions. It doesn't mean they're right. There were 3 judges. The 3 judges saw things how they saw them, and that's what matters. You know what I mean? Like, I told people going into this, if I didn't get the popular vote all the time, I didn't care, as long as I got the judges to see what I was trying to do. If I didn't always get all the judges' side and I may have slid through and a judge or 2, well, then that's just how it is. That's what a tournament is. It's a competition. You're playing to win, you know, so.
And I, you know, being far away from the Wisconsin area for a long time, I actually thought it was genius at first. I was like, this is great. They're getting the fans involved, and let's sell a ticket on the other side of this because I want to see some of this stuff. Any chance that, because I always like to see wrestling, I always feel like if we all work together, what a greater place. But and I've heard rumors of the line. Any chance of that line ever disappearing? We don't even have to get into this. Let me know if we don't want to get into it.
No, it's fine. Honestly, it's not on this side anymore. It's on the Milwaukee side. and that's up to them. That's all I'll say. That's like, it's always been that. And honestly, I don't know what this certain promoter's problem is with the guys up here, or even me in general, but it's always going to be that way until they learn how to let things go. So that is what it is.
All right, let's move on to happier.
Yeah.
You have obviously in 14 years gotten a chance to step in the ring with a lot of people. Have you gotten a chance to step in with some of the quote unquote bigger names? And
oh yeah. 1, 2, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I wrestled MVP for ACW at Water City Wrestling Con. I've been in the ring with Ken Anderson. Been on the same team, was like my second year in, same team with Kevin Nash on a tag team, 6-man tag. Wrestled against the 1, 2, 3 kid, Just Incredible, in the ring with Road Dogg. And I'm forgetting some, I know I am.
yeah.
But I definitely had the chance, you know, and I appreciate those opportunities. I know I was supposed to be in the ring with Tatanka once, but things got changed a little bit, and you know, we had to retry and reschedule that. Last year, Ted DiBiase put me to sleep in the $1 Million Dream and gave me a Russian leg sweep. That was probably the highlight of my career when it comes to working with names. I was always a $1 Million Man fan. I loved his gimmick. I thought it was the greatest thing. In fact, when Thomas Walton III, which was my alter ego for my heel side, that's what I was going for, was the $1 Million Man. You know, being that guy with money and having his crew, but having that one, you know, guy who was like his Virgil. And I had my Virgil. I had, you know, beginning Jordy Lee as my Virgil. Okay. So, like, I love the $1 Million Man. So having that happen, and that was great. You know, that was awesome for me. So, yeah.
Some of the things that happen when they bring a name into an indie show is you're learning a lot, not just from being in the locker room, but a lot of them do seminars beforehand. And I always say take full advantage of those anytime you can get in and just pick the brain. Who's on the bucket list?
Bucket list. Right now,
I know that list could be huge.
TJP for sure. I've always been a huge fan of TJP.
TJP just on the lockdown sessions last week with me. Should be out next week.
And then Sammy Guevara. I've been watching him since he came in. He's not even been in the business that long. I watched all his Mexico stuff. I've had my eye on Sammy Guevara, and I knew he'd be something special. I'm so glad AEW picked him up. I love Sammy Guevara. That's like my top right now, though, Sammy Guevara. And I mean, there's other guys out there that I'd love to get in the ring with, but like, if I think about like present day guys that I still have an opportunity with, Sammy Guevara, that's who I want. Like, I think that I could have a great match with him. Be some good stuff. So, Moxley, I'll say Moxley, and I've been in the ring with him before. Back when he was, you know, still doing his CZW thing. He worked for Elite Pro down in Illinois, and I worked for them, and we did like a 6-man thing. It wasn't a long stint, you know what I mean? But It was enough to say, hey, I've been in the ring with Moxley. Ali. I'd love to work with Ali if he wasn't working with WWE again. I was in the same company with him for years and never got to work with him. So definitely him. Those are just guys that I can think of offhand that I would love to just mix it up with. So
I know a lot of times I ask that question, and I know that list is huge.
List is long.
Yeah, it's a long list.
It's always long.
And then Sammy Guevara, man, does he not have just a great face to be a heel? Like, you just want to punch him through the screen. Yeah,
you just want to punch him. He's got that face. You just want to punch him. That Spanish God thing works for him because he's got the face to go with it. And you just like, just want to punch that guy in the face.
Awesome. So kind of as we close up here, where hopefully we're wrestling soon. I always say on the other side of this pandemic, the boys in the ring are going to be given 110% like always, and maybe kick it up to 120 now that they've gone without it. I've talked to several people like yourselves that like, hey, we're ready. We're ready. Can't wait to get it on. And I think those crowds, once they let the crowds back, you're going to have crowds giving 120%. And I think these first few shows out of the gate are going to be amazing. Where, so as a fan, and granted we're worldwide, but hopefully a lot of people from Wisconsin watch this, subscribe to it, drop your phone because we're live on tape. But where, how do I get a hold of, if I'm a fan, where do I follow you on social media? And
Instagram is TWalton12, at TWalton12. Twitter is at Thomas Walton and then 3 I's. And then Facebook is Thomas Walton 1983. So you can get a hold of me all those places. Or you can email me at officially TW3@gmail.com.
Especially if you're an East Coast promoter.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking to come out there. So any promoters that are listening right now, you want a guy that can do just about anything, that's got some good knowledge, you can help with your young guys, I'll put anybody over. I just want to come out, you know, to the East Coast definitely and show my face. So
how about, is there TW3 merch available?
Yeah, there's TW3 merch. It's the original TW3 Pro Wrestling Tees. I believe that's my link for that. So there's TW3 merch on Pro Wrestling Tees. Otherwise, email me. I have the merch here. I have Venmo set up. I have Cash App set up. I have PayPal set up. I can send you whatever. He's just like J Cash does. Disclaimer: J Cash does all my merchandise for me. So
there you go.
So yeah,
he really is running the Players Club.
When he says he is the guy running the Players Club thing, he does it. I've been over now. I know how to make my own T-shirts with this machine too, so I can go over there and make them anytime I want. Cash is just one of those guys he's like family to me. He's been like my brother, like another father. He's definitely guided me a lot through the business. So that Players Club thing it's really him with some guys that are truly his actual friends. So it's not just a gimmick. It's like really who we are. So
that's awesome. So as we wrap up here, my hope is that we can one day squash all the heat in Wisconsin, because there truly is, whether you're in the South, you're in the North, you're in the middle, there's a lot of great talent in this area right now. So
definitely.
And then hopefully we're all working together for a better tomorrow.
June 20th. WPW is running their first show at Baba Louie's in De Pere. So there will be lots of strict things going on. I know that the promoters have bought a head thermometer, so they'll be taking those temperatures. So if you have a temperature, don't even bother showing up that day, because they're going to send you away. But there's social distancing things going on, masks being bought, all the proper precautions are being taken for that. So fans of WPW, Wisconsin Professional Wrestling, we are coming back June 20th in De Pere at Baba Louie's.
Now, I will be very disappointed if you and J Cash aren't making your own face mask for that show. And so
I've already made my new one, so people will see it that day.
All right, fantastic. TW3, we look forward to June 20th and dates beyond that we can get to see you. I want to thank you very much for joining us on the Lockdown Sessions.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and we will get this out as soon as we can, and hope before June 20th. And we hope to see a lot of fans there. So thank you, TW3.
Thanks, guys.